Good evening. Today is April 26th, 2021, and this is the 49th episode of New Paradigms. I'm your host, Sargis Singiri. I have two special guests today. One is Ms. Amo Fukada, a Japanese journalist, an author, and an IT analyst, and also Mr. Jason Ho, who was the lead designer of the F-35 flight control and imagely display systems. Moi received her Bachelor of Arts in Global Political Economy from Waseda University in Japan. Upon graduating, she worked for Diamond Financial Research as an analyst before joining Barclay Capital Investment Bank in Japan. She was a consultant to Reveltron LLC and worked her way up to become the CEO of the company. Reveltron LLC is a leading artificial intelligence solutions company which is looking at development of revolutionary real-time AI applications. The company was founded by a team of veteran makers of the computer chip designs to exploit the breakthrough designs and performances characteristics of the latest innovations in the real-time AI world. Moi was a finalist also for the Women's Entrepreneurial Establishment under the Japanese government of 2021. And then she also was the one that looked at very different fundamentals in her writing on the IT world. The Japanese IT industry is stolen by China, the truth of the 5G revolution, the truth of the US war against the China when it comes to IT, and also the social media and economic wars, which are a number of those books that she has been able to put together. Really looking at the specifics of what is happening when it comes to China and the U.S. relationship in the IT world. Mr. Jason Ho was a 20-year veteran experience in integrated circuits design and also has been awarded multiple worldwide patents for innovation in the field of chip design, computer architecture, and also network security. Before joining Reveltron LLC, Mr. O was also the CEO of MAI Logic Incorporated, where he raised $10 million in funding and led the company to successfully include several multi-million dollar gate ICs, and also worked with several global companies such as IBM, Motorola, TI, and Rockwell Collins. MAI Logic, formerly known as Mentor Arc Incorporated, is an advanced IC design company. Before MAI Logic, he had several design engineering positions with LSI Logic, Altron Computer Chip and Technologies, and also Unitech. Jason received his Master's of Science degree in Electronic Engineering from Pennsylvania State University and a Bachelor of Science in Electronic Engineering from the National Keotong University in Taiwan in 1984. Jason and Ma, is my pleasure to have you guys here on the show today. Welcome.
Thanks for having us here. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you all here. Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you become a designer on the design team for the F-35? What led you to that position?
That's happened a quarter century ago. And at the moment, F-35 was quite advanced technology, and they want to have very, very unique design, which has never done before. For example, one F-35 can lead many drones and fighting together. Also, they want to have a see-through technology, they call it as a smart helmet, to have pilot-controlled aircraft through the helmet. So those unique designs, they need a new and fresh blood, new ideas. And that's happened. I presented a letter and a paper when I was graduated. And at the moment, the IBM thought that paper was quite interesting. So I've been vetted as about 4 years and exam and a test. And finally, my proposal got accepted by the Lockheed Martin. And then how I joined F-35 design.
Mo, we talked on your bio too. I covered somewhat some of the books you had written. I didn't go into the details on the titles specifically, but just wanted to highlight for our viewers. Tell us, how did you become the CEO of the company, and how did you and Jason get together?
Back to 2010, former Intel CEO, it's a Japanese in Intel. He introduced me to him, and he invited me to join Brevatron. So I was not a computer expert, but his invention could help Japanese nuclear reactor program. So I decided to join this company.
I know that today we're looking at specifically what's happening with China, especially the spying that's taking place with a lot of our technology being stolen. I know we're going to cover some of the stuff that you had to deal with, Jason, and exposing when it came to what they did with your patents that you had actually put together, and also with the F-35. And before we go in there, I know that Ma, also that President Biden did meet with the Prime Minister of Japan. I know that there's been a push somewhat for Japan to be able to help China when it comes to some of the technologies that Japan is world famous for. And I know that there's some, hesitancy from various different global competitors as to why maybe those steps should not be taken. But with that said, I think we can start with you, Jason, first. Tell us a little bit about what are some of the concerns that you may have, given the fact that you work on the F-35. And I think we have some slides here to go through anyway that kind of lets our viewers understand that China is definitely trying to expand its footprint when it comes to stealing intellectual property, as most know. And what are some of the ramifications, especially when it comes to key requirements for the U.S. strategic defense systems that we use, like the F-35?
It is a known fact. China has learned everything about F-35. Our government has acknowledged, and China has gained all the details of the F-35 design. But very few people understand. And China obtained the F-35 is not just the technology itself, but actually China altered or changed their Air Force from the Russia system into the American system. This is a very audacious move. It's not an easy task. And especially F-35, extremely different than the traditional and the jet fighters. And first, I mentioned, is controlled by the smart helmet. Everything is controlled by the pilot. There has a very advanced 3D technology, holographic technology, and see-through technology. That's never happened before. And for China to take in this new type of design, it's not an easy task. It's not just aircraft itself, but all the army system has to be changed. All the supply chain, everything has to be changed according to it. And F-35 is the first and fighter system, jet fighter system, integrated and optical designs into it. So it is a system and including the electronic portions and optical portion together. And this is open knowledge. China successfully obtained all the 35 technology. There's a numerous report about it. But most people think that went through the espionage or goes through the electronic hacking, but it's more than that. China claims and their counterfeit F-35 not only comparable to US F-35, but even better. And it means it's not the technology itself, also the system behind it, and how the people fly it, how people control it, and how to maneuver in the space, how to make a battle plan. That's beyond just a source code, just a design file itself. China has demonstrated and those panels and those smart helmet, even radar system, they are all identical to F-35. It's not a simple event, but those story has been suppressed by the most people and from Taiwan and from different places, and it's very hard to spread out. So if you look carefully, there are so many identical designs and between the China J-20, J-31 and F-35, and this has been stolen and for years. And so this is a very, very typical part and very difficult portion to have people to understand. So, and very few people realize Huawei is very important position in those technology stealing, because the key technology I mentioned about, Huawei is the only company in China or even the world can do that. And F-35 sounds like it's very remote, but I'm the first one report to the US government back to year 2002 about Huawei involvement of F-35. And Huawei smartly went through the Taiwan, and most people think Taiwan is rival to the China. So US and most companies, US politicians that got off from the Taiwan. But you look at this diagram here, it's a map here, you realize the Huawei, the leader, and also some key person in Taiwan for those semiconductor industries, they are sharing the same family root. And so we say there are families, only families. So they actually are same family. And so this is typical communist propaganda. They are running two flags. One is the Communist Party, one is Taiwanese, and looks like against China, prevent the China aggression. And they anxiously want to get all the technology and from the US to defend themselves from China aggression. But actually, a lot of this technology went through the China. So until today, now the US government finally realized, especially after the automobile chip shortage, they realized those Taiwanese companies, those supply chains not already controlled by the Taiwan and China. The Secretary of Commerce just mentioned this is becoming a US national crisis. So this is about what have happened into my F-35 case. And back to you.
No, it seems that as you're pointing out, there's a lot of family relationships there. I know we have competing companies out there that sometimes compete against each other, but a lot of people do not know that they actually have family relations that are tied to the Chinese Communist Party. And that's where the issue is. My concern is what is happening when it comes to Taiwan specifically. Is it possible that there's a backdoor, as you're saying, that whatever is being, what we believe, moved through our allies could be a backdoor through Taiwan that still ends up in CCP's hands?
It's a very important thing. Most US people doesn't understand the definition of company in China or in Taiwan. Extremely different than here. In Taiwan, a company is more than like an organization, a very sophisticated organization. They are not a company. They have people working behind. So, and as those pictures showed, and the even U.S. government sent the letter to the Taiwan to ask for help about the F-35 shortage, but unfortunately, those issues will not be resolved easily. And so the key point is, and I hope the politician here, the government here, and also the most company here, just as the Secretary of Commerce, she mentioned, and U.S. companies must have a counterintelligence ability. And that's unfortunately the steps and those companies in Taiwan, China, they are doing as an organization, and that's how the U.S. company has to do today.
No, look, I think it's some of the stuff is not, rocket science, as they say. I mean, it's very simple. If you know that there's company A that is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party and company B that is operating either out of Taiwan or other places in the U.S., and you have the leadership of company B being related family-wise to members of the family of the Communist Party that is, in charge of Company A, it should be a no-brainer. I'm a little bit surprised that as we have the slide, if you could kind of break down a little bit this slide, maybe this will make a little bit more sense to our viewers about how the families are actually all tied into these companies. Just this one slide, if you could focus on this a little bit for us, Jason, maybe this will define some things for our audiences.
Sure, and you can see and those organizations coming from and the family, the people back to the World War II. And Zhou Enlai is the founder of one of the founders of the Communist Party. And also the Du Yuesheng is a very important and the leader of an organization, and most Chinese people call it the Green Gang. And Green Gang is the reason the Communist Party won the war against the KMT back after the World War II. But actually, there's a lot of stories, a lot of relationship behind those two people. So they show the sophistication and about the Chinese organizations. The same thing like the companies. As you mentioned, the Taiwanese company, Chinese company, but always, for example, people ask about Huawei. I will ask, what Huawei? There's thousands, tens of thousands company registered under the Huawei's name. So it's very difficult for people to realize which Huawei it is. And also, and always Taiwanese, Chinese like to do is, for example, the A company holding the B company holding the C company holding the A company, becoming a circle. So who is the real owner? It's very hard to trace back who is who and what is what. So facing and the war against communist aggression, there's only one solution. We have to realize those companies, they are organizations. They are not companies. If people still think TSMC just a semiconductor manufacturing company, they are totally wrong. They don't understand the sophistication behind it. In my case, and back to 2000, year 2000, that's almost 21 years ago. And we have had the same thing happened. I was the lead designer of F-35 chip. We made a chip for the Lockheed Martin. We anxiously want to get a chip from the TSMC. But we cannot get it. At TSMC, there's technology problem. Maybe people doesn't understand and what the TSMC role it is. I make an example. And it's just like and the book and the business. For example, I'm the writer, created some book. And TSMC just the printing shop. And when we ask TSMC, actually they are printing the chip, but printing the book, and TSMC will say, oh, I'm sorry, your book is so badly written, I cannot print it. That's always the TSMC why to use the same example and same excuse. And for the F-35, because we want to sabotage the program to allow China to catch up with the US F-35 development. And that's the same thing today. Now TSMC talk about the automobile chip shortage. That's about the same thing. So if you look at the timeline carefully, and we cannot get our chip from TSMC, that cost us about a 5 years delay on the F-35 program. But the TSMC gained our knowledge about our F-35 design. Actually, directly or indirectly, it helped China to have their counterfeit F-35, the J-20 and J-31st, almost available at the same time as F-35. It's amazing because and the US already have a system built up for F-35, but China is different. They not only need to create a counterfeit F-35, also need to reinvent their Air Force to match the US Air Force system. So, and the China, the J-30, J-31 and the J-20, only 2 years behind the US F-35 schedule. So just imagine, without a lot of penetrations, without a lot of backdoors, how possible China can make those happening so fast?
It's very easy when you can steal the information and basically bypass it. You know, you go from having no capabilities or idea about having a kind of aircraft that we have at the F-35, and suddenly you have the manual already ready to go without your infrastructure even being set up for it. And knowing how that China really looks at it from an information operational process before it even commits its companies or even its structures within its government to be able to see what they need to do to be able to get to that final goal, which is, in this case is going to be, being more powerful on the global stage than the United States is on multiple continents. You cannot just manufacture these things out of magic. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, it seems like our intelligence capability is not seeing these things or not highlighting it, and doesn't help the fact that in one of the slides we have individuals that even ran for possibly becoming presidents of the United States that are somehow either directly or indirectly tied to these companies, and how these companies are able to influence U.S. Political decision making when it comes to our approaches to securing ourselves, especially when it comes to the F-35 design. Ma, I want to get to you a little bit too on this, because I know that you've looked at it from basically what China is doing, as I said in the bio, with stealing Japanese intellectual property too. It's not just the U.S. that they steal from. Where is it that they're able to influence Japan, maybe even at the political level? And what are some of the things that we need to be at least cognizant of?
Well, I think yes, it's certain.
Did we lose her? Did we lose her audio?
Yeah, listen to the
okay.
audio. Yes. And let me repeat the question.
Jason, I'll go ahead, since you're sitting next to her. If you could kind of explain to her what I was trying to ask.
Okay, and first I want to say sorry to her, because I'm the person and make her become a victim of those terrible international crimes. Even I warned her in advance, but that she never realized. And once really happening, it's really, it's terrible experience. It's beyond the word can describe. So she thought, and I think everyone would think, Japan is a country, is a U.S. ally, it's a democratic country. And she's unprepared. She's unprepared, because whatever happened in Japan, we didn't realize actually it's worse than anywhere else. And we heard the China penetration to Australia, to the New Zealand, and other European nations. But there's almost no report about the Japanese issues. And always I'm wondering, and the Japanese government, is China ally or part of Communist Party? This is really, and what we have experienced through. So that's what have happened on her, and that's been suffering. So she's the only one fighting hard, because Japan holding so many critical technologies, and China anxious to have. But China definitely cannot have it, because Japanese people, you just look at the poll, they don't like in Chinese. Unfortunately, it's not a prejudice, but it's just the long history between the China and Japan. Japan ruled Taiwan before, so, and Japanese, they are very close to Taiwan. So it's no brainer. And the Communist Party knows this is a very good opportunity. So they use Taiwan to penetrate into Japan. So whoever tried to attack Taiwan, they would say, oh, you are China's spy. You try to break up the Taiwan and the Japan allied ties, and to help the Communist Party to make pressure to Taiwan. Actually, it's not the case. So she's been fighting by herself so terribly. And you cannot imagine in US here, and people talk about the semiconductor shortage and talking about old issue. We can talk about it openly, even there are many issues, but still we can talk openly. But in Japan, everything negative about Taiwan is totally censored, completely censored. And unfortunately, Moe is the only person, only voice in Japan now talk about, wait a minute. And those people in charge of the semiconductor industry in Taiwan, they are families with the founders of the Communist Party. They are so close together, and they are not the original Taiwanese. And they didn't grow up in Taiwan. And even those people, even they have Communist Party building memorial hall for their achievement for using Taiwan, to using the Taiwan semiconductor strengths to penetrate into Japan. But that's reality happening, and it's pretty sad. And she's fighting hard, and she's fighting alone.
I was trying to report this to the Japanese government, but the government government people doesn't seriously listen to my story. Even they say I am the person just wanna sell my name to the public. So they think I am just a journalist who wants to be famous. And also, I'm trying to expose those espionage cases over the internet. Then police called to me and detained me in the police station for 5 hours without any orders. I was not allowed to bring my attorney. I was so surprised.
And because
Yeah, I'm surprised that, it's unfortunate, you figure that your journalists would be listened to, but we live in a time that regardless across the globe is very difficult. China's information operation is very extensive, and I do know that they do have a lot of effects also in Japan. I think, Mao, if you can see him, I think he has a couple of slides I'm going to put up. Maybe you could talk about them if you can hear me now.
Yeah. The person who took our technology, his name is Wu Su-guo, the person in the middle. He is Chinese, but he took Japanese identity. He stole Japanese identity. How he took Japanese identity is very, 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 how can I say, strange. The person real Japanese, who died in China, Mr. Wu Yefang, Wu Siguo's father, he claimed he is the son of the Japanese and sent a letter to the Japanese government and get the Japanese citizen. Then Wu Siguo claimed he is a Wu Yefang's son, then he becoming a Japanese citizen. I reported to the Japanese government, but they just trying to hide and say he is a real Japanese. So I was very surprised. He is the chief staff of the, how can I say, Japanese congressman, and he has a good relationship to those politicians in the government. But his father is working with BLA. And also, even I expose his real identity over the internet, but Taiwanese news show saying I am a liar. I am a scammer. So this Wu Suguo is not Mr. F. I am lying. I am lying because I am a fraud. The news TV show said. That news TV show is very close to Tsai Ing-wen, Taiwanese president. So both of government, Taiwan, Japan, both of government trying to hide this espionage case.
Yeah, and I think on the slide that as our viewers were looking, I know you had him as Mr. F. Part of the reason is because there's so much ability for Chinese information operations to affect even how we present information here. The reason Mr. F is used here is because if his name is mentioned anywhere, whether it be on YouTube or on Facebook, that is completely censored. So that's why you call him Mr. F rather than putting his entire name out there. It's unfortunate that people don't want to just have the information out there and debate it. But journalists here who have in the past in the United States exposed networks that have not been beneficial for the government have also been under a lot of scrutiny. But I think that from what you're saying and from what you're showing us is that all you're asking is for the Japanese government or the United States in this case to look into these link analysis and verify and validate whether or not the information that's being put out is correct or not. It should not be just news networks that are fighting against what you're putting out there. They should be actually supporting it. It has to be done through a process of the government. I do know that Japan is a little bit under much more difficult parameters when it comes to how much the state apparatus can get involved in private companies. And I do know sometimes, they kind of work in funnels, which is a little bit different than how we operate here in the United States. But that still should not be the main stoppage when it comes to at least trying to follow through to see whether or not the information you and Jason are sharing is true or not. And it seems most of this is really kind of open source. There's nothing really out here that we're talking about that may not have been found out by anybody who just asked simple questions. Who's the CEO of company A? Who's the CEO of company B? And what are the family ties within those companies? That should be just a no-brainer. Jason, why do you think it's so difficult? Why is it that there's so much difficulty for whether it be the United States? And I do know that you have given your statements to the Department of Justice, at least here in the United States, on these issues. Why do you think it's so difficult for government systems to try to at least pursue looking at how this technology is being stolen and why it's being stolen?
I think come to the fundamental issue is money, because Taiwan spend millions of dollars in think tank, in donations in Washington, D.C. And those think tanks actually is helping China and to hide the truth, always give the different direction of the problem of the issues. And for example, we try to warn the TSMC, they already control the automobile industry. Even the Moy wrote about an article last year warning the automobile industry might be under the TSMC and this limitation. No one taking care of it until the issue happened. Now the Secretary of Commerce said this is a U.S. national crisis. So look at what Moy has mentioned. The stories have two issues. First, when she disclosed the spy network and what she has, and it's not supported by the police, by the Japanese government, but actually she has been intent. And also there's a gag order from her. She cannot talk about those China spy network in Japan. That's incredible. But another thing is people, I hope viewer can think, it is not nothing to do about Taiwan. It's about the China spy network in Japan. But Taiwanese media coming out to say Moy is a China spy. Taiwanese media talk about Moy is a Taiwanese enemy. Taiwanese media talk about, and those spy network is misunderstanding from Moy. She just want to make a fame, make a name over the internet. And just think how possible it is happening. For example, and we catch a Russia spy. Suddenly, the U.S. government coming out and say, no, that is not a Russia spy. This is someone that's very good. Whoever disclosed that Russia spy is definitely someone has trouble, someone has fraud. That's about the same thing. So that's the most amazing part. That's sophistication makes it very difficult to make people aware. And that's how I think that's important. I come out to talk and have people to understand whatever happened is really beyond belief.
Well, Jason, I think it's unfortunate, but there's a saying in Washington, D.C., money talks, BS walks, and that's just the reality of how Washington has operated. Corruption at the end of the day is what really causes a lot of the issues and problems we have. And sometimes I think what happens is governmental systems, depending on what the agency is, unfortunately, if they come out and say that we knew that China was doing, or the Chinese Communist Party was doing these things for so many years, the first thing people are going to ask is, well, why are you telling us now? Why didn't you do anything about it in those years? And sometimes, unfortunately, bureaucracies try to self-protect themselves. In that process, it happens that they actually do more damage, not only to the country that they're representing, but also themselves in the long run. And it loses the trust of the people, whether or not those governmental systems are capable of doing what they have to do. And at the end of the day, the only thing we can kind of look at and say, well, if you're not doing your job, then either you're incompetent or you're corrupt. Unfortunately, it's kind of sometimes a combination of the two that gets us to a point where we are today. The reality is that as we have seen multiple sources indicate that the F-35 and its technology were stolen. I do know that you have some patents that you had worked on, Jason, that you had actually designed. Are those patents in your control right now, or were those patents also part of what the steal that took place with the F-35? Possibly.
I think come to the intellectual property, that's a little bit sophisticated. Definitely, I still own some patent, but the more things is trade secrets, and those trade secrets is not yet patented. As long as remain as a trade secrets, usually, and I still holding those intellectual property right. It's not holding by myself, but it's under the company's property. So, and those trade secrets definitely can give a position, because the most interesting part, and the design of the F-35, the flight control and image display system, that's almost a quarter century ago, actually 25 years ago. And I was young, and like everyone, and doing when they are young, and we make mistakes. So I made some mistake in those designs. Ironically, when I saw the news, Chinese news propaganda talk about how great the J-20 and J-31 is back to 2014, I realized they made the same mistake as I did back to 1996. So it's very easy to prove at the court. If I made this mistake, I can show I made this mistake back to 1996. And you made the same mistake. Just like, for example, you copy someone else's writing and people make a wrong spelling. You made the same wrong spelling, not only once, but twice and 3 times. Definitely, every court will understand easily this is a stealing. So in my case, not only I'm still holding those trade secrets, but also I can prove at the court easily. And because China make the same mistakes as I did back to 25 years ago, so I can prove I should the person owning those trade secrets. As a result, if I own those trade secrets, and because most of those trade secrets now is holding under the Huawei. Huawei is collecting billions of US dollars worldwide of the patents they applied based on the trade secrets I developed. So I believe the US court system should have a chance. I can fight back to say, no, those patents should come back, and for the US to own, for the US company to own, for US citizens to own, because that's stealing from the US. So I want to do one more thing than the government talk about. Government just talk about we should prevent the US stealing, China stealing the US technology. But I want to do one more thing. I want to make a case. Not only want to prevent the China stealing the US technology, also we can use the US legal system, have them to pay back. Whatever the benefit, the money they got illegally from the US companies, they have to pay back. So I hope I have a chance to show at the court. But unfortunately, and maybe we can talk in the future, you cannot imagine even that idea is not welcome to many politicians in Washington, D.C., also not welcome for many people just want to make easy money doing easy business with the China Communist Party. So they think that's too risky. And therefore, I believe that public awareness is the only way to have those possibility, those and things I'm hoping for move forward.
No, I agree with you. I think, most politicians do not take a step forward because they're always worried, about the next election, and they're not going to risk their careers and possibly having Chinese Communist Party through other business connections pour millions of dollars into the coffers of an opponent to run against them. So they're risk averse. But I think everything that you laid out here can be probably put through certain channels, both at the State Department and also at the on Capitol Hill, where it allows them to at least have the research information to be able to use it to make much better policy and possibly change laws to ensure that guys like you who have intellectual property, something that you have put on the table, does not just get stolen. And frankly, the fact that China is so incompetent that not only do they steal your technology, but they're not able to say that there's design flaws. As you said, you had made some mistakes when you were younger, and actually incorporate that into their sophisticated weapon systems. Maybe U.S. should just put some design flaws and let the Chinese steal it and use it for their design technologies and their missile technologies, and let them have to deal with it in the long run. But with that said, it's good to see that we have a journalist, Mao. You're doing yeoman's work, as we would say in the U.S., supporting Jason as an engineer in his efforts. Mao, if people want to read more about your work, can they go? Where can they find out more information like what we have shared today?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah, so maybe just help her out. Yes, definitely. And I think, there's a website, and this really found her heart. And she's saying, "A country no longer my own." I hope people should read it and understand it, because if we don't pay attention to, eventually the America will be the same situation as Japan does today.
No, I see we have a QR code there for our viewers. They know how it works, but if you point your camera at it, it's going to take you directly to a site where you could read a little bit more on what Mao has been doing as far as trying to at least highlight the truth. The one good thing is that we have these type of shows like New Paradigms, and also we have other podcasts out there that are going to start highlighting some of these processes that the Chinese Communist Party is moving forward on, specifically when it comes to stealing really technology that we need to defend our nation here, and Japan needs to defend its nation. We're going to have you guys back again. I hope we can bring you back in the future. I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive next time. We'll bring you back, if that's okay, Jason and Ma, on specifics as to how this process is moving forward, what is happening, what are some of the key things that maybe we're not saying. If anything, at least we can highlight it for our intelligence apparatus that might be watching out there, and let them go ahead and fight the fight on behalf of you guys, and also all the other American companies out there that have had their trade secrets stolen by China. If that's okay, we'll have you back again.
Definitely, it's our pleasure, and we feel honored to have a chance to come to this show.
No, it would be my pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. And with that said, this is New Paradigms.
Thank you, everyone.